Welcome, finance and marketing leaders, to our latest B2B in the Black video series, What Good Looks Like in the Post-COVID World. I'm Thad Kalo, CEO of Business Online and founder of B2B in the Black, an executive forum that aligns B2B finance and marketing leaders to unlock growth. Today, I'll be talking with Drew Chapin, CMO of Hyland, a leading content services software company. And I've had the great pleasure to know Drew over the past couple of years. And as you will soon find out, Drew is authentic, he is insightful, and he is a very successful marketing leader. And near and dear to my heart is the fact that he's a fantastic ally to his counterpart in finance, Nancy, the CFO. I just love that, Drew. Welcome.
Thanks, Thad. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, let me set the stage for our listeners today. As we all know, in this post-COVID world, leadership must create new strategies and tactics to meet the moment, turn these challenges into opportunities. Incremental thinking will no longer cut it. Businesses need a long-term plan to create true digital transformation. And Drew, I believe you identified one of the most challenging and critical issues leadership faces today. And that's simply this remote work culture and talent. So let's start with a very basic question. How has COVID affected the day-to-day work experience at Hyland?
Well, I think it's very similar to what everyone else is experiencing. We're all remote. It's heavy Zoom, death by meetings. That's what we've been experiencing. And what's unique, maybe not unique to Hyland, but what we're missing most at Hyland, I should say, is that in-person interaction. A big part of our culture is our office space. We offer a lot of amenities and benefits like on-site manicures and massages, and we also have like an on-site Montessori-based daycare for our employees. And
wow.
Initially,
that sounds nice.
It's fantastic. Initially we had to shut a lot of those services down, and that part of our culture wasn't accessible by our employees. So we've had to pivot. And we've had to figure out other creative ways to engage our employees without seeing them in person.
Was any of this unexpected? I mean, obviously COVID was unexpected, but as you began to shut that down, the reaction from the employee base, their understanding, their lack of understanding, I'm curious, as you started to navigate this, what was unexpected and what was expected?
Well, I guess what was unexpected was how adaptable our employees were. Yeah. Really overall. I mean, yes, fatigue from Zoom and from being remote when you're used to being in the office and really enjoying that face-to-face culture. So I was really proud of the team in the way that they adjusted. And then I think what challenge often does, it sparks innovation and creativity. So we had to dream new ways of engaging each other. We hosted a baby picture contest for our employees. Hyland historically on Valentine's Day has offered like a buffet of chocolate at all of our offices from a local chocolatier here in Cleveland. And of course, we weren't able to do that this year because we weren't in the office. So our HR team, we have 4,000 employees. They sent gourmet cookies to every employee at Hyland to celebrate Valentine's Day, which my kids enjoyed. But I think, we all look forward to getting back to the office sooner rather than later. But, this virtual employee engagement is here to stay. And the last thing I'll say, just from a work standpoint, is we figured out how to be productive remotely. Yeah. And in some cases, we're more efficient. So that's been a benefit that we've enjoyed with this new reality.
Yeah, and I think that's always a sign of good culture. Like the companies that are thriving in this remote work environment, people understand the mission. They clearly understand where things are going, and they find ways to be resilient and thrive. So kudos to you and the leadership team, Drew, over there at Hyland. That's fantastic. Let me ask you a question, though. I'm going to pick on something. You did say we all look forward to going back to the office. I mean, is that the case? Do you believe that all of the employees will want to go back? And if not, how are you going to accommodate folks who have learned to kind of thrive in this remote environment?
Well, maybe I was projecting there because I'm looking forward to getting back into the office. Sure. I enjoy that. We actually surveyed our employees, and 70% of our employees either preferred full-time remote or a hybrid environment where they could come and go as they saw fit, which was really interesting. As I think employees are enjoying the flexibility. I know I am. My commute is about 10 steps down the hall into the office in the morning. The one risk that I would say there is that we've had to be careful of is people work more because it is more convenient. So, and they work different hours. So you have to be more careful about managing your time, your work time versus your personal time, because for a lot of us, that's become one and the same.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I would suspect that that's very much a top-down driven approach. If management is answering emails and sending text messages late at night, folks expect to do the same down the chain. And I'm curious, do you see that, and how have you responded to that type of, top-down approach?
You're totally right. And what we've tried to do is be really proactive, setting good examples. So I, for one, when I'm in a meeting that I don't have to participate in, I'm just there to listen and learn. Sometimes we'll turn off my camera and exercise. And I let my employees know that that's what I do. Like when I see a meeting where I'm not required to be there speaking, it's a way for me to get a workout in, and then I don't have to do that after work. I also, when I take vacation, I let my people know I'm going to be out, and I don't answer emails. In fact, as you know, Thad, last summer, I took a sabbatical in the middle of the pandemic where I was out completely unplugged for a month. And it was not only supported by my leadership, but encouraged. And so those are the kinds of things I think leaders can do. Don't just take the vacation, but really be, careful about checking in or checking email. Set a good example for your employees, and I think they'll do the same.
I mean, I think, frankly, as simple as that sound, I do honestly believe it to be visionary, because there's so much fear in management that we're going to lose productivity or people aren't going to be engaged. And I actually worry about the opposite, to the point you're just making, whereas we're creating more work, we're creating this environment of always having to check in to feel like folks are working, and to take that bold step and taking a sabbatical and making sure that you're not sending emails late at night is frankly so refreshing. And I have this general belief that is going to be the culture of winning companies of the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what you get from that is when people are working, they're giving you their all.
That's right.
They're really committed, and you earn their trust and long-term commitment. And right now that's tough. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into, retention and attrition of key roles as part of today's conversation, but that's really something that is a risk for us. Even at Hyland, as strong as our culture is, it's something that, the little things count, and employees pay attention to those things.
Yeah. Let's talk about trust for a second, and we will get into retention, because I think that's a key point. But you mentioned something. I did a little research before this interview, and in her new book, Professor Neely of Harvard Business School, The Remote Work Revolution, Succeeding Anywhere, says, we need to make sure that we're aligned, we're focused on our shared goals, and very clear about our capabilities, contributions, and resources and constraints, so we can establish a working environment where we can revise and update given the dynamic, and ensure, and here's the key, and ensure that there's a psychological safety, as my friend and colleagues would say. To me, this word psychological safety is interesting, because when you sit at the top, like you are, Drew, you sit at the top of the food chain, you're a C-level, right? We probably inherently feel a level of safety, depending upon where we are, right, in our roles, but, you do sit at the top. So focusing on that, because we're not able to connect at the water cooler and see that, visceral moment where we feel good and you get those nonverbals, I think is critical. And I wonder, A, have you recognized that as an issue or an opportunity? And B, is there anything you're doing as a leader or leadership within Hyland to create that psychological safety or trust?
Well, a lot of the things you mentioned are spot on. And the tail end of it, I would say, is over communicate. Create extreme clarity around your mission, your vision, and where the department's headed or where the company is headed. Because in the absence of information, people's minds are going to think about other things. So especially now when we're not seeing each other face to face, I think being very deliberate about how you're communicating the company goals, the departmental goals and strategies, how you're progressing towards those, the role that your teams are playing and contributing to those successes, celebrating success. We're not, like, for example, just last night, we went live on our latest version of Sitecore with SXA, which is our web CMS, runs all our websites. And we had an online kind of celebration about it. I weighed in, my boss weighed in, and I know the team was working round the clock. And normally we'd see them at their cubes doing that work, and we'd be able to respond to that. But that's not where they were. They were, over the weekend on Zoom with each other doing the work. And so I think it's important to over communicate and to really celebrate be deliberate about celebrating success as a team and together.
I love that notion of deliberate, because to the point you just made, I mean, sometimes it's physical where something happens in the office place and you got a fist bump or a high five, right? You don't have those anymore. And, being very, I think, like deliberate and intentional around where those successes are and how we give gratitude, so I like to think about beyond the thanks. It can't just be thanks, but I like to thank them for something specific and why I'm thankful for it in the Slack message or whatever it is, because you got to make up that gap. Because I really believe there is that gap in creating, some of that safety and people feeling comfortable that they're successful, right?
I totally agree. And all those things, the clarification of the strategies and the goals and the trust and the celebration, all that builds trust.
Yep.
And when you build up that trust bank account, if you will, it takes some of the risk out of attrition and some of the other things that a lot of companies are experiencing today.
Yeah, I agree. And let's pivot into that, because we know how important it is to motivate and retain top talent, especially for those folks who've been overworked in this past year, right? What are you doing and how are you doing it, Drew?
Well, I think like everyone else, we're the boundaries that existed for mobility of the workforce are now gone. We're all on a level playing field. So that in-office environment or the cultural advantages that we had, or even geographic advantages that we have in the Midwest where we're based, our labor costs are much lower than the Bay Area and New York City. So we benefited from that for years. That's not the case anymore. And so we've had to get aggressive in our pay strategy and get more competitive with some of the talent that's on the coast, frankly. And that was a big shift for us. And it meant hiring fewer people, identifying those top talent and doing that more proactively and rewarding them. And it's not just pay. I mean, pay is obviously, it's an important part of the equation,
sure,
but it's providing, leadership opportunities, whether it's strategic projects to top talent, or it's, a mentor, identifying mentors for top talent, giving them learning and educational opportunities. We've invested in third-party educational opportunities for our employees that they can tap into virtually right now. But, when we get back to the office, in-person programs. So those are some things that we're doing to identify more proactively who our top talent people are, and then provide those benefits to them.
I love that, because everything you point to outside of compensation, which obviously is a foundation for a lot of this, and it's of course it's not everything, but is around growth, because top talent wants to grow. So everything you're doing is around how you can grow them, how you can mentor them, how they can be part of a strategic, project, how they can get more education, and they should eat that up, and that should be a big part of what is I guess a magnet for that top talent. Kudos to you. How are they responding? I mean, is this what you're putting in front of them? Are you winning with this? Are you finding challenges even when you put a better salary in place and you show them that the way forward?
I would say we're mostly winning. But early on we lost a few people, and it was a rude awakening for us, and we had to pivot our strategy, and we had to kind of start thinking about the total compensation package, not just pay, but everything else that we can bring to bear. So overall, I would say it's working well, and we've been able to move quickly and address some of the compensation gaps or some of the morale issues that we've identified with some of our talented people. One example is I think all companies have these folks. They're maybe less experienced, but extremely talented people. So they start maybe at a lower level and they just skyrocket through the organization and leapfrog their peers, but the pay doesn't keep up with them. So we've kind of lived with that risk pre-COVID, but those are the folks that are really ripe for the picking to leave, because they can get a big pay bump by moving. So we've been really aggressive in addressing those inequities to keep those people on board.
Yeah, I love that, again, deliberateness, right? Like in understanding what that is. And even when folks aren't asking, is showing up to the table saying, we recognize you, and here we are to deliver. Let me ask you this: as you are looking at these individuals, and part of it is, just their success, right? Others is just the role. Like they may have certain experiences that have been critical. What have you found within Hyland to be some of the more capabilities or more important roles within your organization, and which are less so?
Well, I think like everyone, transformation to digital marketing was accelerated tenfold. We probably advanced 5 years in the last year of COVID.
Yeah.
And so roles like digital marketing, search marketing, technology related roles, we've had to invest in technology to help manage all of our digital engagement points. Analytics and data, these are all roles that have become really critical and attractive for everyone. The roles obviously that aren't as maybe sought after are in-person related, event related, trade show related, and even teleprospecting. So as we've invested more in digital and the technology that we can use to automate the nurture and automate the lead scoring process, we haven't had to hire as many teleprospector, and the volume's actually gone down as we've invested in these technologies.
So essentially, if I could paraphrase, the accelerated nature of COVID has made anyone who has digital experience to scale the sales and marketing process to drive pipeline has become more important, and anyone on the periphery of that, may be a little bit more challenged.
Absolutely. And so for those folks that are on the periphery, we've tried to retrain them, repurpose them, at least for now. And for the digital, technical, data driven marketing folks, they've been overwhelmed. We've literally dumped at Hyland millions of dollars of additional investment on them and said, figure it out, essentially, is what we did last summer. And they really had to work hard to find places to invest those funds that were good ROI spends for the company. And they got burned out. And there's some things that we're doing to address that. We're using outsourcing and offshoring to ease the burden, and that's been something that's worked really well for us. And we're adding staff as well to try to ease the burden. I guess the only silver lining is we're not alone there. I think right now, at least for marketing professionals, digital marketing is probably the most overworked and overwhelmed job family right now at all companies. So it isn't like they would go somewhere else and have less work to do, but it definitely has put a big spotlight on that skill set for all of us.
It's interesting. It's almost like be careful what you wish for, right? Because for so long, B2B marketers have been saying, pay attention to us. We are the future. We can drive growth. We can scale, finance, we're as important as sales. And it almost landed overnight. And now we're a bit overwhelmed by the importance of this role and the amount of work that has to be done.
You're totally right. And I'm really happy about the shift because of the ability to measure ROI. And that's what in the conversations that I have with Nancy, our CFO, when I'm updating her on our marketing results, to be able to tie, ad spend directly to bookings is huge. It's huge when, we're making acquisitions and I'm having to lobby in the acquisition model for marketing dollars. It's helpful when we occasionally do have to trim budget, in the middle of a year for various reasons that we all experience, that I've got really good solid ROI metrics. So at least Nancy knows if we're going to reduce the marketing spend, this is the business impact. And she's able to factor that into the planning.
Yeah, I love it. And for those that are listening today, you don't know, I was able to share the stage with Drew, and he was absolutely brilliant and articulate in his ability to explain the journey he took as senior marketing leadership in connecting and aligning with finance to understand how it impacts pipeline, how it impacts growth, how it impacts efficiency. And he's got an incredible model. I mean, like a very sophisticated model, forward leaning, and frankly, as you just heard, a great relationship. Anyways, that's a whole nother subject. It gets me excited to know that that's still in play and that you guys are still cranking it. Let me shift to leaning forward and thinking about the next couple of years. If you look 2 years out from today, in as much detail as possible, Drew, how could you describe for us like the ideal work culture at Hyland? What are we doing? What are we not doing that we're doing today? What's unique and different? What's the same?
Well, I think what's different is it's kind of similar to the way buyers are directing the buying journey. I think employees are going to direct their experience.
I like that.
We're going to give them options. You can work in the office, you can work remotely, you can work in a hybrid environment. And I think what you'll see in the physical spaces of offices, at least at Hyland, because the real estate market isn't so great right now for office space, we're not thinking of selling our buildings. What we're thinking of doing is reimagining them and creating more collaborative workspaces for this type of workforce, the workforce that they're almost like butterflies. They come and go as they please. When they need to be in the office, they're there. And we create collaborative environments for them to work together. When they want to work remotely, we design rooms so the technology can be there for hybrid meetings when you have people in person. And we've all experienced that in the past, but it just hasn't been as interactive, I think, as it's going to be in the future. We're going to be reimagining all of that. So I do think the employees are going to be kind of driving that, and we want to provide them the options.
Yeah, I love that. And I imagine like this layer, as we all survey our employees to understand their level of satisfaction and engagement and where they're successful or not, that there's this whole opportunity for exploration around psychological safety and feeling comfortable if you are remote, that you feel like you have the same opportunities for advancement and growth and comp. And like, that's a whole area that I get excited to explore, because when you do that, that becomes the last component where they feel just as safe, whether they're rubbing shoulders with you at the kitchen counter, if you will, at the cafeteria, or whether they're at home and just doing great work, right? I think it's an exciting world.
I agree. And I think we've all been forced to get good at that. We've been forced to figure out how to engage employees that are remote and interact with them and engage with them. And the difference is going to be that we're not all going to be on a level playing field. So we are going to have to kind of go back and revisit that trust issue and make sure that those remote employees are feeling welcome, they're feeling valued, they're feeling like they have the same opportunities that someone who is in the office has. Because I think that retaining those employees, as we all know, is really critical, not only to delivering amazing customer value, but also from a cost standpoint, because it's so expensive to replace an experienced employee. That's always going to be the case.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it. Well, Drew, I truly appreciate all your wisdom and experience. And I appreciate the question. I mean, sometimes it's an uncomfortable question for folks in leadership today, which is to understand where we're losing and where we're falling short of expectations in this new moment. But so critical to the success, short and long term. And I appreciate you're having this conversation with myself and this greater community. And thank you for sharing all your wisdom and experience.
No, it was great to be here. Thanks, Thad.